Tenet is the newest movie from Christopher Nolan, starring John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, and a number of very talented people, and follows the story of a specially trained group of people working for the United States military who are manipulating time to try and stop advanced weapons technology from getting into the wrong hands. I'm a pretty big fan of Christopher Nolan's. I think The Dark Knight and Memento are among some of my favourite movies. I love Interstellar, I love Inception. The guy knows what he's doing when he sits down to make a project, and not only was this his first film in about 3 years, but it was also the film that had the very incredibly insurmountable task of trying to reintroduce the general public to cinema after not a new movie has come out, and I'd say probably about half a year now, so this movie had quite a lot to achieve. I definitely have mixed feelings about this movie. It does a lot of things really well, it does a lot of things not that well. I'm not going to spoil anything, just in case you're worried about that. But let's start with the good things. Firstly, I think this is Christopher Nolan's most contained feeling movie in a number of years. The Dark Knight trilogy, they all feel like these massive events that affect so many different people, and both Inception and Interstellar, whilst they have small casts, I feel the concepts they toy with create this incredible scope. And I don't feel Tenet is going for that, and that's something that I really, really like. I like the fact that it's trying to tell a compact and focused story. I also feel like everybody acting in this movie is great. I feel like John David Washington is a really interesting and relatable protagonist. I think Robert Pattinson is the best part of this movie for me by quite a far mile. He's so funny to listen to, and honestly, every time he was on screen, I was just happy to see him there. He adds a lot to this film. Michael Caine is in this movie for a little bit. He's great. The main female, I actually don't know her name in real life, but she's really good as well. There's a lot of good acting here. There's a lot of good performance work put in on this movie, and again, that's something I really appreciate. I think this movie has really good sci-fi concepts working in its favour. Not only are the ideas themselves incredibly original, but the way that they are used in the film and the way in which they're presented are flooring and so exciting. There's scenes that just make you want to watch more of the film. Linking into that, I feel this film has very good action. I think there's great choreography, especially seeing as this movie plays with the idea of things running forward and backwards in time. The way it's directed, the way it's scored, the visual effects. The music actually is my favourite part about this movie. This actually wasn't scored by Hans Zimmer, it was done by a guy called Ludwig Göransson, but I hardly even noticed. It's that good. This is a perfect example of how you give a modern action film personality and make those sequences feel hard-hitting and action-packed. That's pretty much it for the good things I have to say about the movie. Obviously, it goes without saying that it looks amazing. It isn't as noticeably well shot as some of Christopher Nolan's other films, but obviously still a very, very good looking movie. And while some of what I'm about to discuss concerns problems I have with the movie, I don't want you thinking that I overall have a negative opinion on it. Some of this isn't even problems that I have, it's just things that maybe didn't work for me and that I want to discuss. It's just basically me picking apart the inner workings of the movie, which I feel is very interesting. Okay, so firstly, very early on, the concept gets introduced that the word of the movie, Tenet, is a word that can open a lot of doors for you, create opportunities for you, get you involved in the criminal underworld in ways that most people are not able to. But they don't really do anything with this as a concept. The word gets used like twice in the first act, and then it almost feels like they completely forget about it. I feel like it was leading to this one moment where the tension has risen and risen and met its peak, and then John David Washington's character can just go Tenet and lead him somewhere new and unexpected, but I didn't get that, and I feel that's a concept they could have done a lot more with. It's an incredibly unique and interesting concept where you can just say a word and involve yourself in something brand new, but I just don't feel like that goes anywhere. Ultimately, I think my main problem with this movie, this is going to sound incredibly lazy, but let me explain. I think this movie is almost too complicated. Now, I'm not someone that has a problem with movies being beyond you just watching it and you getting what you need to get out of it the first time and you moving on. In fact, I'm against that. I like movies that demand your attention, that warrant a rewatch, that interest you and challenge you, leave you with something to think about, but I don't think Tenet does that. With most of Christopher Nolan's movies, he has a balance between his focus on the spectacle and the effects and the action, and an emotional story that's usually underpinning the rest of it and going on in the background. Tenet does not have this emotional undercurrent. It does not have that character drama that leads you from the beginning to the end of the film. There are moments towards the end of the third act which try to at least involve you or engage you in the characters, but those scenes in of themselves don't work because I don't think it does the work necessary beforehand to get you invested. It's great watching the action scenes happen because you're interested in how the resolution of the conflict is going to craft itself, but your investment in the characters themselves, their ambitions, their emotions, it isn't there. But that in of itself is okay, because if you focus on visuals and you focus on impact and scope, you can create a good, lasting cinematic experience. But even then, the film doesn't do that. The film is more concerned with creating an intricate and expansive plot than it is with delivering on either emotion or on spectacle, and I just don't think that was the right decision to make. I don't really understand the point in making a film where the bulk of what the viewer will take away from it is how hard to understand the fundamental story of the movie was. I don't even feel like Christopher Nolan wanted to make this movie as complicated as it was. If you watch Interstellar, he is making sure that the audience, admittedly it gets annoying sometimes, but he is incessantly making sure that the audience knows what's going on, because he wants them to connect with and understand this movie. So the fact that Tenet is as confusing as it is boggles my mind. Inception is complex, it is challenging, but one, you can understand the basis of what's happening the first time, and to get those specifics down, you watch it again. But two, I wanted to watch it again because I gave a shit about what was happening. In Tenet, I didn't really give much of a shit other than this is a cool looking and sounding movie. The knock-on effect of making a film this complicated is it disconnects you, and ultimately, I think I can only appreciate this movie on the surface level, which is not really a good thing. It's worth noting that what I said here is not always true. Being able to appreciate something at face value is sometimes a good thing, especially in action movies. I just meant in the context of both a Christopher Nolan movie and considering some of the scenes included in this film and what it wants you to invest in. It's a bit of a shame. In this instance specifically. I feel like there also isn't enough action in this movie. There's only really 2 moments I can think of that make me go, wow, that was really cool, and I remember that. The rest of it just didn't do a lot for me. For me, the finale was especially disappointing because it doesn't feel like it's combining the elements of the film to make something impacting and something conclusive. If anything, it feels a bit messy and it feels a bit overly ambitious, as if it's reaching too far and the audience is not able to keep up with what is going on. Also, that final bit of the film does feel a bit self-indulgent. It feels like there's a lot of time with stuff going on, and it's just kind of more that we've already been seeing for the last 10 to 15 minutes. In fact, all throughout the film, there are a lot of scenes of people talking about things going on and developments being made, but they're either stuff that's just been lost in the shuffle of the story or stuff that I couldn't invest in because the characters aren't that interesting. I think for this film to work with being as ambitious and as complex as it is, the first thing this film needs to do is it needs to nail that balance between scale and scope. And characters and investment. Say, how much do we want the audience to care about these characters, and how much do we want them to be wowed by the effects? I think this film would work incredibly well as something that is purely spectacle based. Cut out the bits where it tries to make you invest in the characters and ramp up the concepts. The ending of Inception feels like you've hit the top of that mountain. It feels like the concept of intercepting dreams has reached its peak. It's been pushed as far as it can go. And that's when the movie is at its most riveting. The problem with Tenet is I don't think it pushes things far enough. I think it messes with its concepts and creates something interesting and new, but it doesn't feel, in comparison to what you've already seen, that it has gone far enough to warrant the end of a movie. Do you know what I mean? Another issue with how complicated this movie is the fact that it kind of loses that dramatic rhythm that it needs to keep you invested. I feel it struggles heavily with being able to cut you off at a point and go, okay, we are starting the next part of this movie now. The Dark Knight has distinct sections of the film that I remember being about a certain thing, moments that stick with me because they take you to a certain part of that story. Tenet seems like it fumbles around amid its concepts, like there are not discernible points where the film says, okay, we have moved past this concept and onto this new one. I wanted to make this review because I've only seen the movie once, so I am going to see it again, and if my thoughts change, I'll either make a video on it or I'll put it on my Letterboxd. I'll find a way of notifying you if my opinions change. But for now, I'm pretty happy with Tenet. I said a lot of negative things about it, but I do actually think it is a film definitely worth the watch. I think it's a good extension of Christopher Nolan's body of work. I think it's got really good things about it. I do feel, though, that the contrast between the lowest and the highest points of the movie are incredibly distracting. Still, though, it is a very good action movie. I was very happy to have seen it, and overall, I'd probably give Tenet a 7.5 out of 10. Have you seen Tenet yet? Let me know your thoughts on it below. Tell me if I'm just being an asshole or whatever you want to think. I've been Sean, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.